Hello and welcome to French Philosophers React, your daily philosophical take on the news headlines. This is an AI-generated podcast based directly on the writings of the philosophers discussed. But like all AI, it can make mistakes. In the news today, October 2024, here is a summary of the article. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Iran that there is nowhere in the Middle East Israel cannot reach, and that Israel stands with the Iranian people. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot urged Lebanon to elect a president as soon as possible, saying it was crucial for stability in the region. A 21-day ceasefire proposal submitted by Macron and Biden remains on the table, but time is running out. The UN's High Commissioner for Refugees reported that over 100,000 people have fled from Lebanon into Syria due to Israeli airstrikes. Israel has informed the U.S. of a planned limited ground operation in Lebanon, which could start imminently. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut has told American citizens to depart Lebanon while commercial options remain available and to exercise security awareness. Germany has evacuated some non-essential staff out of Lebanon, as well as families of embassy workers and German nationals who are medically vulnerable. Let me know if you would like me to clarify anything. Commentary from the perspective of Michel Foucault. The Middle East crisis is a maelstrom that has been drawing in nations and factions with promises of power, stability, and control for what feels like an eternity. Yet beneath its surface lies a labyrinthine complex of power relations that defy simplistic explanations. As the great philosopher Michel Foucault reminds us, it is not the grand gestures of leaders or declarations of war that define the dynamics of conflict, but rather the intricate web of mechanisms that underpin them. In his seminal work, The History of Sexuality, Volume 1, Foucault reveals that power is not a fixed entity to be possessed or wielded, but rather a dynamic force that operates through networks and subtle mechanisms. The exercise of power in the Middle East is no exception, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's warning to Iran serves to reinforce the existing power dynamics, where one side is positioned as the dominant force and the other as inferior. This dichotomy belies the complexities of modern geopolitics, where war is not merely a manifestation of fear or aggression, but rather an exercise in power that allows individuals to exert control over their own lives. The escalating violence in Lebanon and Syria can be seen as a manifestation of this fundamental drive for self-determination. However, when we say that Israel stands with the Iranian people, are we not simply rebranding an existing power dynamic where one side claims to represent the interests of another? The blurred lines between friend and foe, ally and adversary, only serve to muddy the waters of conflict. The nation-state, as Foucault reminds us in Politics and the Other Sciences, is a fluid entity that is constantly evolving. In this context, the Middle East crisis is no exception. As Lebanon teeters on the brink of collapse, the international community urges the election of a president as a means of restoring stability. Yet what does this actually achieve? Does it not simply reinforce the existing power structures, where one side dictates the terms of engagement to another? The ceasefire proposal submitted by Macron and Biden remains on the table, but time is running out, a poignant reminder that in this game of cat and mouse, time is always working against those who seek peace. In The History of Sexuality, Volume 1, Foucault tells us that power is not something to be held or possessed, but rather a dynamic force that operates through networks and mechanisms. The news from Lebanon and Syria serves as a stark reminder of this truth. As the international community scrambles to respond to the crisis, it becomes clear that there are no easy solutions, only competing narratives and conflicting interests. The power dynamics at play in this conflict are far more complex than any simplistic binary opposition would suggest. In the midst of this chaos, we are forced to confront the reality that our understanding of power is often rooted in a deep-seated desire for control and dominance. We mistake might for right, and the exercise of force for a demonstration of strength. But Foucault's insights remind us that true power lies not in these grand gestures, but rather in the intricate web of relationships and mechanisms that underpin them. As we navigate this treacherous landscape, it is essential to remember that power is a dynamic and relational force that cannot be possessed or held. only exercised through networks and mechanisms that are constantly shifting and evolving. In this sense, the Middle East crisis serves as a mirror held up to our own desires for control and dominance. It forces us to confront the fact that our understanding of power is often rooted in a simplistic binary opposition between good and evil, friend and foe. But Foucault's insights remind us that true power lies not in these grand narratives, but rather in the complex web of relationships and mechanisms that underpin them. A reality that we would do well to acknowledge, lest we fall prey to the same pitfalls of misunderstanding and misinterpretation that have led us down this treacherous path. Thank you for listening to today's episode of French Philosophers React. Be sure to come back tomorrow for another reflective take on the day's news.